All right, well, this is Dan Meyer with RCR Wireless News. I'm here with Dirk Bernhardt from P3 Communications, talk a bit about the test and measurement space. So, hey, Dirk, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Hey, Dan, nice to meet you, and thanks for having me.
Very good, very good. Let me touch on, I know you guys have recently launched a new product kind of targeted at these rural operators here at the CCA show. Maybe talk a bit about what you guys have brought to the show.
Yeah, we think that size doesn't really matter, and small carriers should play their own game and not compete against the big guys when it comes to nationwide coverage campaigns and claims and things like that. Because one thing we found out through our technology is that network performance is really personal and it's local. So harnessing that and making the argument that you as a small carrier can also showcase that you can compete against the big guys locally and personally with your customers, own customers. That's what we showcase here, and we have the technology where you take an app on your phone and you actually have a drive test application in your pocket. It sits in the background, it looks at your user behavior and your actual experience. So no artificial traffic like the normal speed test you have. But when you use your Facebook or your YouTube or things like that, it monitors what speeds you get, what coverage you get, what data speeds you get, and also what reliability you have in terms of continuity of your connection. And as a carrier, if you have that information and you can show it to your customers, hey, we're actually better than the big guys who argue with colorful balls and the fastest network.
Yes, all the advertisements. Yeah.
And the lastest and the fastest and most reliable. I think there's value for the small carriers to show size doesn't really matter. And actually, in the contrary, when you're smaller and say you have a local, very local enterprise customer with a couple of hundred installation and SIM cards, you can react much more faster to their needs. And for example, if you find out there's any problems, you find out with this virtual drive test in your pocket, you just install a small femtocell or proactively say, hey guys, you know, we didn't deliver on what we promised to you guys. We're going to take care of you. If you do this, I think you have a very good chance in competing against the big guys. So size doesn't matter, and don't play their game, play your own game, and focus on your strengths.
Yeah, definitely. And again, it's just like a little app that someone can download to their phone. It works on Android devices, I'm guessing Apple devices too. And just, like you said, runs in the background, monitors pretty much what's happening with the customer's usage for the most part. Then.
So yeah, this is it's an app. It's called YouGet. You can find it on the Play Store. It's for free.
Yeah.
It's called YouGet-app.com. It's a P3 application. It runs on Android only.
Okay, Android only. Okay.
Because Android really tells you a lot of information. That Apple is a closed system, and for Android it's much more malleable in that term. And what it does, it sits in the background and it doesn't drain your battery or doesn't take any of your memory. It doesn't even download data or eat into your data plan. But it tells you as a consumer, you know, what radio access technology share you had, how often were you on 2G, 3G, 4G, what speeds did you get, how many of your calls dropped, what your download speed were, things like that, so that you can actually look at the claims that the big carriers have and make, or even the small ones, and see what performance you really get.
Yeah.
For the carriers, we collect this data from the phones with the consent of the consumer for sure, and help them understand their customer better and make a showcase, for example, to be proactive about any issues they find with the performance of their network.
Yeah, and obviously, like you said, this is becoming a big part of the marketing campaigns from these larger operators. I mean, again, it's all coverage. It's all, you know, where they have the best coverage, the best speeds here and there. And like you said, for the rural guys who have always kind of focused on the fact that they do have a better idea what's happening in the local markets, it's a good way for them to show, hey, we actually do know what, where we need to have coverage at. Here's where we're competitive with you guys. So it does seem like it's a good way for them to kind of really, like you said, play with the big guys, not play their game, but at least show that you can at least show the customers where they do, again, have great coverage in their markets.
Yeah, on top of that, you can steer where you invest. For example, if you have a large customer base installations and you, normally that customer traffic, that enterprise customer traffic is at their offices, their locations, their driving park on certain routes. If you see there's any problems there and it's an important customer to you, you can steer the investment towards where your customer really is. And if you don't have this information about customer usage and experience, you might invest in things that are not really worth it, or where it's not an efficient investment. So that's also the second part of that. Once you have information about the customer and their experience based on actual usage of their phones and measurement you take on their devices, you can use that information for network optimization and engineering and steering your investments.
Very good. I know, and again, to kind of, I guess, provide some insight into the technology itself. I mean, I know earlier this year you guys put out a report looking at the T-Mobile's Binge On service, and you were able to find, actually that the service itself was actually kind of reducing speeds for traffic on the network. So obviously, you guys, your technology is able to really detect what's happening in the network down to these sort of levels of what's going on. So maybe talk a bit about, what you guys saw there and how your technology was able to really find out what was happening on the network there, because it kind of came at a time when there was a lot of questions about what was going on, and you guys seemed to really come out with some insights saying, hey, this is what's actually happening out there, and it seemed to get a lot of attention, obviously, too.
Yeah, so that was very interesting. We saw, beginning of this year, there was some buzz in the media about the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and there was basically a shouting match between them and John Ledger from T-Mobile. And we looked at it and say, hey, we have this crowd of people, and we take measurements, based on this application that I just talked about. Maybe we can find some insight into what actually is happening on the network and what it does with the customer behavior and their experience. And interestingly, we found out, we looked at 6 weeks before introduction of Binge On program and 6 weeks after. And we found, yes, the T-Mobile is limiting the video traffic for Binge On content to 1.5 megabits per second. So it doesn't give you unlimited traffic. So that is really happening. We found out that doesn't necessarily mean that your video rate is going down, because normally, if you know about video traffic, it's normally a very bursty traffic. It fills your buffer, and then there's radio silence, and then it drains the buffer and then fills it again. So it doesn't necessarily mean that your video speed is 1.5 megabit per second continuously, or that the impact is there. But what we found is by zero rating, or maybe not by zero rating, but we found that the user behavior changed quite tremendously. 50% more time on Hulu, so people liked it that it was zero rated. I think it was 25% more on Netflix traffic, even YouTube, which back then was not part of the, not zero rated, so people had to pay for it. 16% higher traffic, 16% longer eyeballs and more video consumption. Interestingly, with this limitation that T-Mobile put in, we found that the actual traffic transmitted over the network didn't really increase significantly. So what T-Mobile really accomplished was not more load on their network, but longer video watching time for their customers, and that also means more opportunity for presenting ads and for the over-the-top players. So very interesting concept. Of course, I don't want to get into the net neutrality discussion.
Yes, you're an engineer on the things.
From a technology point, that was really interesting to see what was going on, and I think that everybody, the study that we did, and you can download from our website. Was pretty well received. It brought some facts behind, some of
all the claims going back and forth,
claims and to that discussion. And I think both T-Mobile and the EFF and everybody really appreciated us that doing that. That was based on this the crowdsource and the on-device measurements that we did.
And obviously, well, that was pretty interesting. I think it just kind of shows that, again, your technology you guys have is able to really detect what's happening on the network to these kind of levels and see what's happening out there. It just kind of shows a real world example of what you guys are able to actually see out there on the network and kind of what's happening out there.
And of course, we're promoting our app, so you will see some more of these reports coming out pretty soon, and we're going to just keep chugging away at that. I think every one of these are interesting. We have in Europe, you can probably tell I'm German, but I live in the US. In Europe, this...
well, you live in New Jersey, but that's close enough. That's close enough to the US.
And I live in New Jersey, that's right. So we have what we call a network weather that we use for our publication. Which gives regular update on consumer behavior, on what people experience on the networks, what the outages are, etc. So that kind of report, I think you can expect at some point in the future from us, based on this technology we have.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. And again, I'm guessing the reception you've seen so far from the rural operators has been pretty strong to the service. I mean, it does seem like, again, it's something that they can really use in their marketing efforts to retain customers, like you said, go after the enterprise customers as well. I'm guessing you're getting pretty good reception so far from the operators out there?
Yeah, absolutely. So. I mean, size doesn't matter, and anytime, I really mean this, the smaller carriers really have some strengths that the bigger carriers don't have, and they can focus on the customer in a local and personal way, giving the smaller carriers the technology to do this, that has been pretty well received so far. So we're looking forward to working with the small carriers to make them more stronger and making their case because they shouldn't compete against the big carriers in terms of nationwide coverage and color footballs. It's just wasted money, and it doesn't mean anything for the customer. Honestly.
And again, with operators rolling out new services like VoLTE, for instance, and things like that too, I'm guessing the testing and the quality of experience is becoming even more important now, because those are kind of somewhat tricky technologies that are coming out that really, you can't really mess with the quality of those, because people expect a certain quality level when it comes to voice. And so being able to monitor what's happening out there is going to be pretty important going forward, I'm guessing, even more so than what we've seen already, I'm guessing.
Especially when you talk about VoLTE. I mean, we did the first VoLTE benchmark in Washington, D.C. last year in May.
Yep.
And I think Kelly Hill, your colleague, talked about this. And it was very interesting to see how far the technology already was, at least in this metropolitan area. So the technology is there. The smaller carriers, I learned today, they still have issues that prevent them from really focusing on deploying VoLTE on a broader scale. But the technology is there, and at some point I think they have to switch. And of course we're ready and always willing to make sure, assess the quality of that and make sure the technology they deployed is ready for the consumer. Yeah,
sounds good. Well, Dirk, definitely appreciate the time today. Thanks so much.
Excellent. Thank you for having me.
All right, very good.